it's Yamina again, and today is my unpopular opinion. No, I don't know if it's unpopular, but I grew up in New York City, and in New York City, it is not uncommon to hear a certain word that black people use to mean to just speak to another black person, and that word to me is a racial slur, and it usually ends with an A, but in other times it ends in an ER. So I personally do not like that word in any variation. I don't like to see it written down. I don't like to hear it in music. And I appreciate when people that I know who are not black don't use it or don't share it on social media. Um, and I appreciate when black people who like repost something that has that word in it, like they cross it out because that shows that they don't appreciate that word, they don't use it. And thing is, that word is very popular. It is very popular in music, rap music, I think predominantly. Missy Elliott did a song, Madi. What year did that come out? 2020. Yeah, Missy Elliott did a song in 2020 that came out, and that was like one of the first words in the song, and so I haven't heard the rest of the song because I was turned off by that word. So my opinion about it is just I don't think anyone should use it. And the thing is, people are gonna say what they want to say. That's up to them. I never used that word in my entire life because I just found it offensive. And growing up in New York City, we would read books that dealt with like black history, black characters. Some of the times they were in like 1800s or before that. So that word, if it was in that publication, would be the ER racial slur. That is very common, and very common in that time. I mean, and I would hate, like I would always ask my teachers, like, is that word in this book that I need to know of so I could like skip over it? Because when I read books, when I read books, I read every single word on the page. Sometimes I skim read, but most of the time I read every word on the page. So I wanted to be made aware if there was a possibility that I would come across that word. When I watch movies that deal with like black people in like historical settings, I like to know ahead of time if that word is going to come up. So I was able to see the movie Belle, which is about a biracial woman who was raised in an aristocratic family in England in the 1800s. I think in the 1800s. So she was the daughter of a slave and aristocratic man, and they actually did a movie about her life. So she was a real person, and they did a movie about her life in a kind of in a typical way that movies are done. Like it wasn't a biography, it was a dramatized version of a biography. And I asked movie theater people, like, is that word in this movie? Because I don't want to hear it. Like, and thankfully, I found out it wasn't. And I also found out it was written by a woman from India, and she lives in England. So she grew up, I believe she grew up in England. So she's of Indian descent. And thankfully, like, that word was not in her script. And I was very appreciative of that. So I like to know ahead of time if something's going to be in something that's performed, written, or whatever. And that's probably why I don't listen to rap music, besides just like not liking most of it. Like a few of them have good beats and stuff, but in general I don't listen to rap music because that word is using it a lot, and I just hear people repeating it. Like back before the pandemic, I would hear young people repeat stuff, and I'm just like, why are you using that word when you're not black? So that's the other thing. So yes, black people use that word in the community, but I don't, and not every black person does. Like literally, not every black person does. And then there are people who are not black who think it's okay to use it, and they're not being racist about it. They're just using it thinking it's okay because they hear it in a song that they listen to by a black person. And I'm like, no, it's not the same thing. Like, please educate yourselves that that word has a history that is not old and is still offensive to people, especially if it's used by someone who's not black. And just complicated. I just hate that it's so entrenched in like African American language, like colloquialisms. Like it's a colloquial term, but at the same time, it's a racist term, and I don't like it. Like when I was 19, and I don't know if this happened the year I was 19, but when I was 19, my friend told me that her mom got sent to jail for punching a man in his face because he called her that racial slur. And I was just like, someone called your mom that, like for real? And he was actually calling her pretty, but he used that term, and I was like, don't, that doesn't make sense. So anyway, I'm kind of getting agitated, I think. But my thing is like, if you know something's a racial slur and you're not part of the black community, don't use it. And I wish other black people wouldn't use it, but I can't be policing other people. Like, I just won't use it. It's just against what I believe in and what I feel about my people. Like, I don't like using that word. And what I notice a lot is that word ends up being used most often by people just describing a black man. And I don't know if it's used usually to describe a black woman, but I'm just like, but why? Like, just say a black man, just say a man, just say, because usually somebody's talking about people within their community, so just say this guy, whatever, instead of saying the slur. Like, to me, it's a slur. I don't care how it's spelled. I'm just like, why does it have to be a thing in the language? Because then you have people who are not black posting it on social media, posting it wherever else they're using it, and then maybe even using it verbally, and it's tiresome to hear it. I'm just like tired of seeing it, because it's like one of the only racial slurs that is actually like used on a regular basis. There's another racial slur that's used against the Roma people in Europe, who are actually of, I think, North Indian descent. They're of Indian descent, but they are now have been in Europe for a long time. I think hundreds of years now. And usually, where are they usually? I think they're usually in Romania. And they're the Roma people, but there's a word that's used by a lot of people that is what they used to be called, but it's considered a racial slur. So I'm not gonna say what it is. Just look up Roma people if you want to know. But yeah, I just think just because something is in use every day, and like, just, you have to recognize who's using it and why they're using it, and not make it a thing, because not every black person finds it inoffensive. And I had to, I don't know, a few years ago, there's this guy in town who was like considered super smart. I don't know him. I don't know if he's super smart. He's just an older guy. And he and I had a conversation on a bus one time about like racial slurs, and he was telling me about like the one that black people use, and he didn't actually say it, but he was just like, yeah, black people use it. I'm like, not every black person does. Like, you have to know who you're speaking to. You have to recognize that the black community is huge, and there are multiple black communities, and not everybody uses it. And just because they use it doesn't mean it's cool for you to use it, because I understand that it's a reclaiming of the word to like make it less powerful, but at the same time, if someone uses it in a hateful way, it's gonna still be, you're still gonna feel disrespected, and I just wish it wasn't a thing. So this guy was he was trying to argue, and I'm like, it doesn't matter that a few black people use it. It doesn't matter that half the black people you may know use it. We don't have a lot of black people in this community. I don't know anybody who uses it where I live. Like, and I hope they don't. But I really don't know anybody who uses it where I live. And some of them are witnesses like I am, and other ones are not witnesses, but it's just not a term that some of us use here. And like, some of them are African American and some of them are African immigrants. So it's just like a different community, but it's a very small community, and none of us use that to what I know, because if we would hear that word here, it would like make heads turn. And so anyway, this guy on a bus, he was like trying to say, because like black people use it that it should be able to be used, whatever, whatever. And I was like, no, because literally not every black person uses it, and any racial slur should not be in common language, should not be in common use, because they are not positive. Like, they are slurs, and that's where they should stay, and they should not be spoken unless we are going to be identifying someone who's racist and avoiding them or teaching them. So I basically shut that conversation down, because I was like, we're not going through the list of racial slurs and what they are and who gets called them, because I don't have time for this. Like, this is a dumb conversation. We already know that it's a slur, so why are we gonna go through the list? Like, that doesn't make any sense. So we cut that conversation short. And that's just how I feel about that word. And I think you know what word I'm talking about. I just don't like it, and I see it more than anything on social media, because I'm on social media a lot. And I don't, like I said, I don't listen to rap, because most of it's in that stuff, and it's been around, like, it's been reclaimed in the black community since the 90s, maybe the 80s, but I never got into using it, because I was just like, I don't like it. I don't care that you're black and you're saying it to be funny, or you're saying it to be cool. I don't want to hear it. Don't call me that, because there's racist people out there that I'm trying to avoid, and I don't want to hear them calling me that. I'm a black woman. I'm an African American woman, and I like being who I am, and it's how God created me, and I appreciate that. So that's just my feelings about that term, and I hope I'm not being like overly vague and ridiculous right now, but I just hate the word so much that I don't want to say it. I've never said it in my life, and it makes me so mad that it still exists to this day. But okay, so anyway, that's my 2 cents. Everyone have a good rest of your week, and I will upload another video at another time. Take care. Bye.